Thank you. That's such a nice, it's really nice to meet a bunch of new people. My book is actually out now. I'll go ahead and put the link in the chat just in case anybody's interested. Pine Row Press is a new press out of Kentucky, and they've been lovely to work with. He's been lovely to work with. It's a kind of a small operation. And it has a lot to do with my, I'm a mom of three. I'm one of six kids, and my father died young at 49, and my mother died about 18 years later of lung cancer. So my book has a lot to do with that experience, the day-to-day experiences of living and grieving and moving on. And so I'll jump around a bit from the book. It will not be all morbid death poems, but it's very true to the experience. And thank you for inviting me here, and thank you for everyone being here to listen. This is a great way to spend a spring Saturday night. It's night here where I am, 7:30. The title from this poem is from a headline in the Telegraph. And this is the first poem in my book. Pomme de terre. Hand grenades dug up for potatoes in France. How often do we evade calamity? Most things can be mistaken for potatoes in dirt. Clean them up, most things are still ordinary. The children color at their stations after the lockdown drill. Lights on, crisscross applesauce. They keep their hands to their own bodies. The marchers wave signs and chant in unison, arms locked, in lockstep, safe in numbers. The walk you take ends at a sunlit cafe where you drink chai, a glass of water, and walk home again, smelling of cardamom. Heedless geniuses of the place, we consult no one and live on, not even pretending to read the sign, striding off across the new grass. The next poem is a bit of a dirge, or the song from my husband. I have a few. My idea of a love song. Insomnia. Often I wake to the sound of his pacing downstairs, stalking sleep from room to room, water running in a glass, dishes clinking in the sink. Back when I smoked, I'd rise too. Any excuse to glow in the dark. Late summer nights, I'd kick my legs over his, nude beneath my nightshirt, letting the tide of his voice wash over me. Specters billowed from my cigarette out the open window, a generously animate moonlit float, carrying our words as it drifted. These days, hitched, child-bound, strapped for time, my sleep is a noun needing protection. I pull the covers close while he stirs his 3 a.m. polenta. Spare my feet the sand on the floor, the memory of salt in the air. And this one is probably the only other, well, maybe not the only one, but one of the first love poems that I wrote for him again. Conservationist. We've rambled deep into snowy pockets of the woods when a summons comes from a clearing. I step into the sun's bright grasp to where he stands by an old flagstone foundation, the corpse of someone's home, some unknown one, but he knows the story. Names dissolve even as they're spoken, dates, entire conversations plucked like leaves from his mind's branches. But he always knows the story, all the workaday heartaches thrumming at the root. What, what, what once seemed a sad attachment to blight, I recognize as an incantation against forgetting these vast acres of felled lives and how small the axe that felled them. So I'll read now a couple poems from when my mom was sick and then when she died. Diagnosis, stage 4. Your wings are swelled to honeycomb, afflicted sacs of marauding cells. You're more earthbound than ever. A vast scattering lights up the darkened grayscale scan, constellation whose every new star steals years from your life. Years. How can you bear it? How will we? But there's no lasting anodyne for this, that, there. The luminous hive eclipsing your heart. Motherless. A quiet, nothing like peace. Only the subtraction of sound. Breath, heartbeat, oxygen machine. Everything stilled to this, the sound of sobs in a vacuum. Her mouth yawns, an airless maw, tongue slumped to one side like a closed pink tulip. I lift her jaw and prop it with a pillow. Prop the pillow with her dough-warm hands. A pantomime of devotion they will inevitably disturb. Before the body bag, before the gurney, the hospice nurse and I perform the ablutions, dress my mother in clean, soft cotton. We 6, her children groan, cry in waves. Each hour rings the loss of her, time emptying its minutes into the room cavernous without the hospital bed, the room with my boys, her youngest grands, spin like lodestones in a haywire compass, unmoored by its vacancy. In the living room, my brothers divvy up their second-hand suits among the family men, each trying on pants and jackets, passing what doesn't fit onto the next. Who has a tie pin, shoe polish, shoes? The title of this one is after a line from Aaliyah Pupora. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing her last name. Poem. Where you split, you bloom. Your stones, a new milk tooth among the weathered markers. How to make of your loss something less never, something less, excuse me. Your stones, a new milk tooth among the weathered markers. How to make of your loss something less never, less always, less torn sutures and sawtooth incisions. Your appointments meant CBCs, ivy lines, the blue stars of radiation. Mine are heartbeats, sonograms, the contrapuntal pulses of the living. The phlebotomist's smooth ruby draw pains me beyond galaxies. The memory of your cigarette paper skin and elusive veins, how your face charred to ash with each needle's dig. I press gauze to the red pearl. The bell of my belly strains and shakes with each strike of the ringer inside. So I'll move on to where I am now, thank you, which is the art of aging. And inspired by W.H. Auden. About menopause, they are never wrong, the old matriarchs. They know the flush of heat as you burn from the inside out, how no amount of discarding clothes cools its fires, how colleagues peer over screens, ceramic mugs steaming in their hands, dispensing movie spoilers and cat videos, as if you weren't this minute dissolving like salt in warm vinegar, granular, gradual. How inestimably kind the iron-haired cashier seems with your bananas, while you're invisible to the tattooed young bagger, hands nail-bitten, thickly veined, tossing everything into your cart. She knows there's either murder in your heart or an endless berm and swale of vague wanderings in search of your last true thought. Who knows how blood boils and spatters rather than flows? Knows when the tide crests bloodthirsty. The crones keep mum. That was very fun to write. So after my mother died, I discovered that I was pregnant again, which I wasn't expecting. And this time I already had two boys, and my husband's fairly older than I am with two grown sons. And, we're rather, there's this generation and this generation. So my kids have much older half siblings. So we weren't expecting another. But there we did. After 4 boys, my husband has a little girl now. And she just turned 10 today. Today was her birthday. So this one is for her. Spring morning. My daughter tiptoe dances on the deck, singing to the birds. The morning light faint on the boys, sipping warm milk. Chickadee-dee-dee. She's missing her 2 front teeth. Her brothers laugh every time she laughs. She loves making them laugh, which makes her and them laugh. The chickadees love her song. They chirp back, flitting from branch to branch. In this way, love repeats from our home to the trees, to the sky, returns to our home, to the trees, to the sky, something we keep and give away. This, I don't like to say, this really happened, because I think it's irrelevant to the poem, but this really did happen. And it was a very interesting story my husband told me about work when he used to work doing construction survey on bridge sites, with the tripods and construction workers. This was an unusual day, and the tenderness of it amongst all these hardscrabble men always impressed me. Johnny on the spot. Rigged out in hard hat, neon vest, and earplugs, the worker missed the radio call. Deer on sight. Construction cleaved the road. A din and disfiguration of woods to the west turned cliffside. So he saw you before hearing the alarm. A panicked fawn tearing through the disarray, straight to danger. Your cry so childlike, past 3 or 4 other confused workers, till he scooped you up and scrambled towards safety. His steel-toed boots scrabbled through the gravel. All the while you struggled and squirmed, your bleats reverberating through the rubber in his ears. Fawn so new, you coated his arms in afterbirth. So new, you never knew a home. And I'll just read two more. Death to life. When winter ended, the bushes hung so brown and forlorn, I thought we'd failed them. More deaths to tally in the ledgers of moral responsibility. The missing panicles of the sumac trees, more oracles than Heracles. The cat that faded in days, more Cheshire than calico. The carelessness of all four parents lost. But when a friend mentioned hers hadn't flowered for the first spring in memory, I began seeing them everywhere. Leaves of burlap where there should have been green stars, supernova with blooms. We found the right person with the right information at the dump, where our distant neighbor and master gardener told us wind killed the rhododendrons, record winds and climate change, more human nature than Mother Nature. We could have spun that thought to further conclusions, the acres of death, imagined all the winters to come. But the vast incapacitates. So we turned instead with the relief of letting go, relief of being blameless or helpless or hapless, to our neighbor's advice. Look for signs of life and brook no weakness. Cut it down to the ground. And I'll end with the title poem in my book. The title leads right into the poem. Leave no wake, but our Bach, I'll start again. Leave no wake, but our boat rocks too slowly as it is. Our dead anchors in the inkiest depths. Mr. Fancy laments our lack of sails or motor, clucks and knuckles the wooden hull. It's Mr. Fancy's boat. I pour cocoa from thermos to mugs for two of the three kids, their laughter bright bells over the water that swallows more land every year. Its sway is lull as deception, rising tide, rising bile. Their brother begins retching over the gunwale, convulsive comma hanging on. He blinks at me, feral and misery, and I grab the oars, row when I'd rather hold him, row as the other two pack up the basket, wrap him in a blanket, pat his back. Mr. Fancy says he's worried about the boy, vaguely motioning towards the oars, the spatter on the wood. His tongue knocks against his teeth. What should we do? Cluck, cluck. As if I wasn't this very minute making waves, making progress, struggling towards the shrinking shore. Thank you.